I woke up in the hospital, only to find I had lost my memory. But that didn't stop me from falling for the man who came to visit me at first sight. He then told me he was my husband. What's strange, though, is that he didn't wear our wedding ring and was having long calls with my sister Sophia behind my back. A thought popped into my head. It seemed he was in love with my medical doctor sister, Sophia. I was nothing more than a stand-in. My head was heavy and confused, as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer and then kicked by a wild horse. I struggled to open my eyelids. The blinding white light stabbed my eyes like a sharp sword, making me wince in pain. The smell of disinfectant aggressively invaded my nostrils. The hospital? Why was I here? A doctor in a white coat, whose glasses were as thick as the bottom of a beer bottle, leaned closer. His voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. You're awake? How do you feel? You have a slight concussion. I looked at him. Who are you? Then I looked down at myself. And who am I? The doctor scribbled something on a piece of paper, then spoke again, still calm. Now we can add traumatic amnesia to the list. After meticulously noting my symptoms, he finally answered my rather philosophical questions. Your name is Luna. You are the second daughter of the Hayes family. Luna? The second daughter of the Hayes family? The words drifted into my ears, light and unreal. Just then, the door to the hospital room was abruptly pushed open. A handsome man strode in. My gaze met his face, and in that instant, the throbbing in my head seemed to lessen. What divine good looks! He was exactly my type. He was tall, with broad shoulders and long legs, dressed in a well-tailored dark suit, which looked a bit more casual due to his hurried movements. His eyes were deep, his nose bridge high and straight, his thin lips pressed together. He exuded a cool, aristocratic aura. I couldn't help but lick my lips. Was this the eye candy the hosp I tall provided? Just looking at him filled me with energy. The man took a few steps to the bedside, his eyes falling on my bandaged forehead. His brows furrowed, and his voice was low and full of worry. Luna? Are you still in pain? Wow. His voice was just as captivating. I absolutely had to make this eye candy mine. Luna? He saw me staring blankly, and his tone grew more anxious. My throat felt tight, and it took me a while to find my voice. I think so, a little. My eyes remained glued to his face, unwilling to move. He immediately turned to the doctor, his words quickening. What exactly happened? What should we be aware of? He asked very detailed questions, afraid of missing any information. I took the opportunity to search for that face in my blank mind, but it was just an even greater blankness. Finally, when he finished talking to the doctor, I mustered my courage and flashed a confident smile. Handsome guy, excuse me, who are you? Interested in dating? The man clearly froze, then quickly looked at the doctor. Traumatic amnesia, the doctor said, calmly adjusting his glasses. The man's beautiful eyes instantly filled with shock and concern. He leaned slightly closer, and a faint, pleasant scent of cedar wafted towards me. He looked at me, enunciating each word clearly. I am Ethan. Your husband. Boom. A firework seemed to explode in my head, leaving behind a giant question mark and an exclamation point. He is my husband. Oh my God, did you mess up the script? Could a good thing like amnesia at the start of the story, complete with a perfect husband, really happen to me? Husband? My voice was wavering, full of uncertainty. Ethan seemed to sense my doubt and smiled. You're still wearing our wedding ring on your ring finger. Indeed, the ring was dazzling, almost blinding me. I actually took the ring off to examine it closely. Our names were engraved on the inner band. Ethan, his name was lovely too. Then my gaze fell directly on his long, finely jointed hand. Wow, so handsome. No, wait. There was nothing on his ring finger. It was bare, cleaner than my mind at that moment. Where's the ring? I blurted out, my voice rising a few octaves due to shock. Mine is here, where's yours? Ethan's expression instantly froze. A flicker of barely perceptible, somewhat flustered embarrassment darted across his eyes, so quickly it was almost an illusion. This quickly morphed into a keen, scrutinizing gaze. He narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze darting between me and the doctor. His tone was full of suspicion and probing. Luna, have you really lost your memory? Or are you colluding with the doctor to trick me? The doctor quickly adjusted his glasses, defending his professional integrity. Mr. Ethan, please don't question my professional judgment. Ethan was silent for a moment, the sharpness in his eyes gradually receding, replaced by his usual calm demeanor. Only his voice retained a subtle, dry edge. The wedding ring, the wedding ring is in the safe at the family estate. Then, as if trying to cover something up, he rattled off an explanation. It's too valuable. I'm afraid of losing it if I wear it every day, and it's inconvenient for work. If you really want to see it, he paused, his gaze fixed on my face, seemingly observing my reaction. After you're discharged, I'll take you back to the family estate to see it. The ring is at the family estate? That excuse sounded like a fairy tale meant to appease a child, utterly insincere. My heart skipped a beat, and one of my nascent pink fantasies burst with a pop. Yet, strangely, even with my fantasy shattered, looking at his face and hearing his voice, the uncontrollable thumping in my chest stubbornly persisted, making my fingertips tingle. Physical attraction couldn't be faked. Ethan stayed at the hospital to care for me, more meticulously than a professional caregiver. His movements were delicate and skillful. He fed me water, helped me sit up, and adjusted my pillow, all with a thoughtfulness rare for someone from a privileged background. But this attentiveness was constantly interrupted by the annoying phone ringing in his pocket. As soon as the phone rang, he'd jump up as if burned, turn his back to me, walk to the window, and speak in a very low voice. Once, twice, thrice. Each time, he acted as if he were guarding some secret from me. Whose call is it? Why do you always hide to answer it when I'm around? I couldn't help but ask, my eyes fixed on his tense back. He turned around, an impeccable gentle smile on his face, but his fingers unconsciously pinched the cuff of his suit. Something with the office, a bit urgent. I was afraid of disturbing your rest. He walked over and naturally tucked the corner of my blanket, his movements gentle, yet cleverly avoiding my gaze. That hint of tenderness was like a feather, brushing lightly, yet it only deepened the suspicion in my heart. I didn't press further, because looking at his profile so close to me, my mind instantly went blank. Damn it. Good looks are dangerous. Until that afternoon. Ethan sat by my hospital bed, peeling an apple, the long strip of skin falling in one continuous coil. I stared intently at his eyelashes, tinted golden by the sunlight. Wow, how could someone be so handsome? The phone rang again. This time, Ethan's reaction was unusually strong. After glancing at the caller ID, he quickly clamped the phone screen tightly in his palm and abruptly stood up. I'll take a call. Before he finished speaking, he was already striding towards the door. Something was definitely off. I held my breath, and as soon as his figure disappeared behind the door, I immediately threw off the blanket, my bare feet padding softly like a cautious little mouse as I tiptoed to the door. I pressed my ear tightly against the cold door. The muffled sounds from the hospital hallway outside were like hearing through a fog. Ethan's voice was very low, fragmented, and hard to make out. My palms were sweating from anxiety. I wished I could wedge my ear into the crack of the door. Until's voice suddenly rose, loud enough for me to hear clearly. But is just Sophia's substitute. The cold sensation of the door panel instantly spread from my earlobe throughout my body. A substitute? Sophia? My sister? I remembered his evasiveness when the wedding ring was mentioned. His deliberate hiding when taking calls behind my back. One cold clue after another pieced together a cruel, yet seemingly logical truth. So that's how it was. All those subtle acts of care were merely because my face bore a strong resemblance to someone else's. Footsteps approached. I snapped back to reality, pulling myself away from the door with all my might, stumbling back to bed, and wrapping myself tightly in the blanket. The door opened, and Ethan walked in, his footsteps stopping by the bed. Luna? His voice held a hint of subtle tension as he gently lifted a corner of the blanket covering my head. Why are you curled up in a ball? Are you not feeling well? I didn't look at him, because his face would only confuse me. And it definitely wasn't because I was sad. Ethan leaned closer, his warm breath ghosting over the back of my neck, a hint of careful probing in his voice. Are you getting restless staying at the hospital? I remained silent, pretending to be an emotionless statue. He was silent for a moment, seemingly assessing my physical condition. All right, I'll go ask the doctor. If your recovery allows, we can go home to recuperate. Only after he left the room did my tears well up and spill over. Humph, the weather is too stuffy. Even a statue would melt. On the day I was discharged, the sunlight was blindingly bright. Ethan opened the car door for me, his movements still showing gentlemanly consideration. With the car door closed, the confined space held only the two of us. He turned his head, his gaze falling on my ring finger, where the wedding band sat. After a brief pause, he asked softly, "Do you still want to go to the family estate now?" His eyes held a subtle hint of unease. I thought of the missing ring, and now it just seemed absurd. I even felt the ring on my finger digging painfully into my skin. I turned my head, looking out at the rapidly passing streetscape. No need. Let's go home. Ethan seemed to let out a sigh of relief. From this moment on, I would play the part of a docile stand-in. Home was a top-floor duplex apartment located downtown. The fingerprint lock gave a soft beep, and the door opened. Beyond the huge floor-to-ceiling windows lay the dazzling night view of the bustling city. Every detail of the interior decor was as exquisite as something from a magazine. The main color scheme of off-white, paired with soft gray-blue and warm ginger yellow, was exactly my favorite combination. The sofa was so soft it made you want to sink right into it. A few uniquely shaped mugs were casually placed on the coffee table, perfectly matching my taste. Everything was perfectly comfortable, as if tailor-made to my preferences. My gaze swept across the living room, and my breath hitched slightly. The sofa backdrop wall, the end of the hallway, the entrance to the home office. Everywhere my eyes landed, there were almost countless photos of Ethan and me. Some showed us laughing and chasing each other on a sunny lawn, others with our foreheads touching under brilliant fireworks, or him in the kitchen, looking resigned as I smeared cream on his face. In the photos, I laughed without restraint, my eyes crescent moons. And he, whether resigned or doting, his gaze was always fixed on me, filled with a tenderness that almost spilled over. Every photo seemed to tell a story of our sweetness and affection. If I hadn't heard the truth with my own ears in the hospital room, I would have almost drowned in this meticulously crafted, deceptively sweet dream. Well, even knowing the truth, I still wanted to revel in it. After all, Ethan seemed to give me, the stand-in, enough dignity. He wasn't a bad guy. Ethan seemed genuinely busy. After I was discharged, his phone calls were still incessant, and the home office door was often closed. But no matter how busy he was, he always made a point to spend a lot of time at home. In the twilight, he often sat at the expensive piano in the living room and played for me. His long fingers danced across the black and white keys, producing melodious and gentle tunes. Sarah, the housekeeper, always smiled and sighed with emotion whenever she brought in fruit and snacks. Mr. Ethan is truly exceptional to his wife. Look, it's only been a few days, and her complexion has already improved so much. Indeed, with the way Ethan was feeding me, I felt like I'd gained at least 10 pounds. Martha, another helper, wiping a vase, quietly chimed in, "Yes, so loving. Who would have thought that originally?" She didn't finish her sentence, but I caught the crucial first part. Originally, the eldest daughter of the Hayes family was betrothed to Mr. Ethan. The family heiress, Sophia. I paused in my watermelon eating, then took a huge bite. It wasn't the watermelon's fault, and I couldn't waste it. My sister, Sophia, was Ethan's one true love. The unattainable love is good, the unattainable love is wonderful. The beauty of the unattainable love lies in its unattainability. Anyway, with a handsome guy to look at, being a stand-in wasn't a total loss. I nodded emphatically, trying to reassure myself. But two little voices chirped in my mind. One angrily cried, "Luna, wake up. This stand-in drama won't do. Where's your dignity? Pack your bags and leave." The other, drooling, chanted, "But his profile is so handsome, his voice is so pleasant, and the way he looks at me, so tender." No. Immersed in my own melodramatic drama, I suddenly realized. It was Sophia who was originally betrothed to Ethan. Could it be, did I scheme to marry Ethan, deliberately aching them up? That's why Ethan only sees me as a stand-in. It made sense, too much sense. My identity instantly shifted from pitiable stand-in to wicked antagonist. But what if I had misunderstood? I decided to test the waters. One evening at dinner, I casually asked, "Ethan, is my sister married?" He paused, his hand holding the cutlery mid-air, then steadily placed a piece of deboned fish into my bowl, his voice utterly calm. "No." "Oh. So, he's deeply in love, refusing to marry anyone but her? Then, where is Sophia now?" "Germany." He put down his cutlery, elegantly wiped his mouth with a napkin, and said, "She went to Germany to pursue her medical doctorate the year we got married." "Ah, so she went abroad to heal a broken heart?" The more I probed, the more it seemed to confirm my suspicions, so I decided to ask directly. "Am I a stand-in?" Ethan looked surprised and asked, "You remembered?" I lowered my head, not wanting Ethan to think I had been eavesdropping on his calls, so I lied. "Only this much, I still don't remember anything else." He smiled and said, "That's a good sign. Don't rush it, you'll remember everything eventually." I looked at Ethan's smiling face, feeling mesmerized once more. I had promised myself that if I really was a stand-in, I'd divorce him and set him free. But now, I still couldn't bring myself to say it. "Look, Luna, what a competent wicked antagonist you are. Wicked antagonists always have to exit the stage eventually, so I don't need to be too hasty, right? Seeing my dejected expression, Ethan probably thought I was asking why Sophia hadn't come to see me, so he quickly explained on her behalf. Your sister is there, discussing borrowing a piece of equipment that is supposedly helpful for your memory recovery. I nodded. See? He was afraid I might misunderstand his perfect unattainable love. The next evening, Ethan came home early. He took off his suit jacket, not going to his home office as usual. Instead, he walked directly up to me, where I was sitting on the balcony, lost in thought. His tall figure blocked the last sliver of sunset from outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. I had a bad feeling. He looked at me, his eyes full of amusement. Luna, Sophia returned to the country this afternoon. She'll be over to see you shortly. Plop. The succulent leaf I was fiddling with dropped to the floor and shattered into several pieces. The unattainable love had returned, and it was time for the wicked second female lead to exit the stage. Sophia arrived extremely quickly. When the doorbell rang, my heart rate abruptly quickened, as if it wanted to burst from my chest. The door opened, revealing a woman in a cream-colored cashmere coat, with a quiet and gentle demeanor, standing at the entrance. Her eyes and brows were indeed strikingly similar to mine. But that composed, elegant bearing, and the calm, intelligent gaze behind her glasses, were something I could never imitate. Oh well, I could never be as refined as her. A medical doctor, the true power holder of the Hayes family. These labels felt like heavy boulders, crushing me until I could barely stand straight. It was truly remarkable that Ethan could even tolerate such a poor substitute as me. Luna. Sophia spoke, her voice as soft as an early spring stream, carrying a subtle hint of concern. I'm sorry I came back late. I've been in Germany coordinating that equipment, hoping it will help with your memory recovery. I looked at her, and the resentment and jealousy I had anticipated vanished instantly like a deflated balloon. In its place was an indescribable, almost instinctive closeness. Like a lost cub finally finding a familiar scent, I even unconsciously wanted to act spoiled. When she spoke to me, her eyes were warm and embracing, without any arrogance or resentment. My sister truly was a kind person. Was this what a pure and flawless heroine was like? Ethan was also present. When he spoke with Sophia, his tone was natural, but his eyes were clear, and his demeanor was proper, with no hint of inappropriate intimacy. Seeing the open and unspoken understanding between them, then looking at myself. An ordinary university student, occupying a place that wasn't mine, just because of a similar face. An enormous sense of guilt grew wildly like a vine, choking me until I could barely breathe. I had stolen Sophia's happiness. I must have used some unspeakable means to force Ethan to keep me as Sophia's stand-in. Otherwise, why would he abandon such a treasure for someone like me? After seeing Sophia, the idea of continuing to monopolize Ethan gradually faded. Such a good sister, I couldn't hurt her anymore. As rose to leave and Ethan went to fetch his jacket to see her out, I finally made my decision. I abruptly stood up, my voice trembling slightly with excitement and resolve, and blurted out, Ethan, let's get a divorce. The air seemed to freeze instantly. Sophia's foot, just lifted, stopped mid-air. The tenderness on her face was instantly replaced by bewilderment, and she whipped her head around to look at me. Ethan's hand, holding his jacket, froze mid-air, as if held by an invisible shackle. He slowly, very stiffly, turned around, the color draining from his face instantly, his pupils filled with utter devastation. What did you say? His voice was extremely hoarse, like sandpaper grating in his throat. After shouting that sentence, my immense courage quickly dissipated, and guilt and bitterness surged over me like a tide. I lowered my head, not daring to meet their gaze. My low voice held a broken sob, yet it was remarkably clear. I said, let's get a divorce. Ethan's face was etched with terror, completely devoid of his usual composure and calmness. He quickly walked to my side, his jacket falling to the floor. Divorce? Luna. Why? What did I do wrong? Tell me. I'll change it. His eyes frantically scanned my face, as if searching for an answer that wasn't there. I remained silent, and he meant to be desperately trying to recall his recent actions. A minute later, his expression was somewhat twisted, on the verge of breaking down. Ethan suddenly gripped my shoulders with both hands, so hard it hurt me immensely, and his voice abruptly rose, filled with a desperate panic and incoherence. Then, as if having made some desperate decision, he squeezed his eyes shut. When he reopened them, they held a look of grim determination. Is it because I wouldn't try those special activities? Or some other equipment? He struggled to say the word, his cheeks flushing suspiciously, his eyes darting away. I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden them all. I thought you'd forgotten about them with your amnesia. My stunned silence was mistaken by him for acquiescence. Ethan took a deep breath and continued, if you really want to try, I can cooperate. He practically roared it out, with a kind of desperate heroism. Just don't divorce me. I'll wear that pink heart-shaped wedding ring tomorrow. I'll wear it all the time. Please? Me. I froze completely. My brain was assaulted by 1,000 screaming voices, shaking my soul until it almost left my body. A pink heart-shaped wedding ring? Special props? What on earth is going on? How did my innocent romance suddenly jump to an R-rated late-night show? I stood there with my mouth agape, like a deer in headlights, unable to utter a single word. Cough. Cough cough. Sophia finally couldn't hold it in, letting out a huge fit of coughing, her shoulders shaking like withered leaves in a cold wind. Immediately after, she covered her ears. I didn't hear anything, I don't know anything. But her face clearly read, are you guys into kinky stuff? I quickly tried to explain, no, that's not right. Aren't I a stand-in? Ethan, aren't you supposed to be in love with Sophia? I poured out all the conjectures and self-blame that had been swirling in my mind for so long. The living room was terrifyingly quiet, save for my short, suppressed breaths. A sudden, seemingly suppressed laugh broke the silence. It was Sophia. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders shaking suspiciously. Ethan's expression was utterly dumbfounded, an absolute picture. Shock, confusion, absurdity. Finally settling into a twisted look that was on the verge of a breakdown. Ethan, in disbelief, tugged at me. What stand-in? Where did this stand-in idea come from? I was dizzy from his shaking, finally found my voice, filled with the weakness of a narrow escape and an immense sense of absurdity. A stand-in. Didn't you say on the phone? Luna is just Sophia's stand-in? In the hospital hallway. I heard it. I gradually gained confidence. And when I asked you, you didn't deny it either. The grief and indignation on Ethan's face instantly froze, then cracked, transforming into an expression of sudden realization mixed with exasperated amusement. He looked ready for the psych ward. He released me, vigorously wiped his face, and let out a long, drawn-out breath, as if expelling all the air from his lungs. Luna, what kind of melodramatic drama are you constantly playing out in your head? Ethan looked at me, his eyes full of incredibly complex emotions, his voice filled with deep helplessness. I was talking about that banquet. That one. Your sister couldn't make it back from Germany, and there was an important event where Hayes' family members had to be present, and the organizers were very particular about who showed up. That's why I asked you to temporarily stand in for her, just to make an appearance and sign in. Understand? Stand in appearance. He spoke almost one word at a time. As for me making calls behind your back, he rubbed his throbbing temples, trying to calm himself down. It was because I was investigating why the crystal chandelier fell. It was definitely not an accident. Someone tampered with it. I suspected it was aimed at you and your sister. I was afraid you'd were. Why, that's why I kept it from you. Ethan gritted his teeth. And what good did that do? It became proof in your mind that I'd changed my mind? Me. The world fell silent. Only the roaring of blood rushing to my head and my own heart pounding like a drum. My cheeks were so hot they could fry an egg. I wished I could dig a hole and bury myself immediately. Never mind, jumping into a volcano and vanishing into thin air would be more fitting. Sophia finally turned around, her face still flushed from holding back laughter, her eyes sparkling with amusement behind her glasses. Ethan and I? Our parents tried to set us up years ago after a few too many drinks, but that's ancient history. We see each other like siblings, there's absolutely no romantic spark between us. She stepped forward and gently patted my stiff shoulder, her voice carrying the unique intimacy and playful teasing of a sister. You and Ethan are the ones truly in love. As for that so-called old engagement, both our families dismissed it as ancient history. Understand, my little smarty pants? I was like a deflated balloon, gradually deflating, wanting only to curl into a ball. At this moment, Ethan looked as if he had discovered a treasure, his eyes shining brilliantly. The corners of his mouth turned up wildly, finally breaking into an incredibly smug, exaggerated smile of relief. So, my Luna cares about me that much? He leaned closer, his warm breath caressing my ear, his voice low and full of amusement. You'd even accept being a stand-in? I thought when you misunderstood, you'd just grab a vase and smash my head with it. I suddenly looked up, meeting his eyes that were filled with teasing and triumph. Embarrassed fury instantly swept away all awkwardness. I ground my teeth ominously, squeezing words through them. the thought did cross my mind. Ethan burst out laughing, pulling me into a hug, his chin resting on top of my head, his chest gently vibrating. After a bit of teasing, the atmosphere here finally eased. I suddenly thought, if this wasn't an accident, then once my memory returned, perhaps I could find some clues? I frowned, beginning to try hard to remember. The scene of clinking glasses, magnificent attire, dazzling crystal chandeliers, and noisy voices. Memory was like looking through a thick pane of frosted glass, blurry and indistinct. I desperately tried to recall, to think of that instant, the shadow suddenly falling from above. Ugh, a sharp, stabbing pain pierced my mind without warning. I groaned, clutching my head in agony, my body uncontrollably curling into a ball. Don't think about it. Stop. Ethan's and Sophia's voices rang out simultaneously, filled with alarm. Recovering slightly, cold sweat pouring down me, and at Ethan's and Sophia's repeated insistence, I finally gave up trying to remember. That night, in the spacious duplex apartment, only Ethan and I remained. The lingering scent of the day's farce still permeated the air. Ethan was sprawled lazily on the sofa, his legs casually crossed. His eyes held a hint of teasing, a mischievous smile played on his lips, his gaze fixed on me. My heart skipped a beat, sensing trouble. Well, he drawled, his voice stretching out. My imaginative genius, your ability to conjure scenarios is truly astounding. A stand-in? A sacrifice? And you so generously told me to pursue your sister? He mimicked my tone from that moment, imitating it perfectly. Luna, the literary world has suffered a huge loss without you. Doing something foolish wasn't scary, what was scary was someone constantly bringing it up. My temper flared. The suppressed shame and indignation erupted instantly. Like an angry cat, I sprang from the adjacent single sofa, lunging at him with claws out, my hands reaching straight for his infuriating neck. Gritting my teeth, I roared, Ethan, go to hell. The moment I pounced on him and shouted go to hell, countless fragmented, sharp memory shards, accompanied by a tremendous sound and blinding flashes of light, stormed into my mind like a tempest. That night in the ballroom, the dazzling crystal chandelier overhead refracted a cold light. I stood in the shadows of a corner, glass in hand, bored out of my mind, playing the part of Sophia. A figure suddenly leaned in, reeking of alcohol and exuding an unsettling chill. He came so close his greasy hair almost brushed my face. That low, malevolent curse, like a venomous snake hissing, distinctly pierced my ears. Sophia. Go to hell. Along with that vicious curse, a powerful force suddenly struck me from behind. Completely unprepared, I was violently shoved forward. My vision instantly shot up. The massive, dazzling crystal chandelier above let out a teeth-grating snap of metal, then crashed down. Ah! I let out a short, sharp scream, my body abruptly shrinking back. As if struck by an invisible force, I collapsed back onto the sofa, my body shaking uncontrollably, cold sweat instantly soaking through the back of my pajamas. Luna. The teasing vanished from Ethan's face, replaced by an expression full of terror and concern. He immediately rushed over, pulled me into a tight embrace, and gently patted my back, comforting me repeatedly. What's wrong? Did you remember something? Don't be afraid, I'm here, no one can hurt you. I gasped for air. I remembered everything. That man's face, twisted with jealousy, bloodshot eyes, greasy hair. There was someone. My voice trembled terribly, each word sounding like it was pulled from ice water. He pushed me, he called me Sophia, and told me to go to hell. I desperately searched my mind for details that could help identify him. He had a mole. I suddenly looked up at Ethan. He has a mole on his nose bridge. Ethan immediately understood who I was talking about. He took out his phone, opened the surveillance video he had watched countless times, and zoomed in on one of the men's faces. Luna, is his the man? I looked at the face that made the back of my head throb with pain, and nodded vigorously. After receiving my confirmation, Ethan quickly dialed the police, explaining what had happened and providing the man's information. He had almost checked everyone who attended the ballroom, and watched the surveillance footage countless times. But at that time I was in a blind spot for the cameras, which was why there had been no progress for so long. After hanging up the call, Ethan held me while observing my expression. I stopped Ethan, who was about to call a doctor, and leaned into his embrace. I'm fine. My head aches a bit, but it's not a big deal. It's not as bad as when I thought I was a stand-in. Ethan chuckled, my darling wife, the heroine of my life, my one and only cherished love, there's only you. With the clear leads provided by Ethan, the police's efficiency in solving the case was beyond imagination. After just 2 days, the police delivered news. The suspect had been apprehended. He was a researcher who had been frustrated in his academic career, working in the same field as Sophia. He obsessively believed that Sophia's research breakthroughs, which surpassed his own, were achieved through academic fraud leveraging the Hayes family's influence. He simply refused to believe that a woman could outperform him academically. Extreme jealousy and narrow-mindedness eventually twisted into murderous intent. He had originally planned to attack Sophia at the ballroom, faking an accident, but he mistakenly targeted me, who was standing in for her at the time. When learned the full story, her face turned pale, her eyes filled with inexpressible guilt and fear. "Luna, I'm so sorry. It's all because of me that you got hurt and almost lost your life." She gripped my hand tightly, her fingertips icy. "Sophia." I quickly clasped her hand in return, forcing a carefree, buoyant smile. "Stop right there. I'm perfectly fine, aren't I? I can eat, sleep, and tease Ethan. It's you, Dr. Sophia, your brain is a treasure to our medical community. If some scum like that got you upset to the point of illness, the loss would be immense. So let's not blame ourselves, okay?" Sophia looked at my exaggerated expression, and her tense lips finally relaxed, the gloom in her eyes dissipating considerably. With things finally settled, life seemed to have returned to its rightful, tranquil state of cozy domesticity. One lazy, sunny weekend afternoon, I sat cross-legged on the soft carpet. Before me was a velvet box, thinly dusted, just unearthed from some inconspicuous corner of Ethan's family estate. I took a deep breath, filled with mischievous excitement and a hidden anticipation. I deliberately cleared my throat, then with a snap, opened the lid. An indescribable brilliance instantly made me squint. Inside the box, a ring lay quietly. The ring was a simple platinum band. But the problem was the main stone it held. A massive pink diamond, cut into a perfect heart shape. The pink was utterly pure, dazzling. Under the sun, it refracted a dreamy and incredibly striking light. Its size, its shape, its color, it was as if the words girlish charm and flashy extravagance had been brutally kneaded together. Pfft! I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. Footsteps sounded behind me. Ethan walked over, carrying a plate of cut fruit, casually glancing at what I held in my hand. The next moment, he froze in place as if struck by a paralysis spell. The fruit plate in his hand made a clatter, nearly falling to the ground. He quickly grabbed the edge, preventing it from crashing. He stared wide-eyed, fixed on the box in my hand. His face showed extreme shock and an alert expression, similar to a guilty squirrel. "You." He pointed at the box, his voice altered, full of disbelief. "Luna, how did you find it?" I distinctly tucked it away at the very bottom of that old camphor chest in the attic of the family estate, and even eyed it down with 3 ancient family records older than my grandfather. I hid it so discreetly. I was beaming with pride. "I'm smart, you know, that memory loss thing was just a minor accident." I picked up the blinding pink heart, like a victory flag, and gleefully waved it in front of him. "Humph. Ethan, the slightest move from you and I know what you're up to, cough. Anyway, I can find all the places you hide things with my eyes closed. Think you can hide something from me? No way." Ethan's expression was incredibly varied, second only to his reaction when he heard the word stand-in. He went from shock to helplessness, finally settling into a resigned dejection. Ethan held his forehead, let out a long sigh, his tone filled with despair over my aesthetic choices. "Fine, you win. So, what do you want to blackmail me into doing with this?" Before, whenever I wanted Ethan to do something he was reluctant to, all I had to say was, "If you don't do it, you'll have to wear the wedding ring," and he'd always comply. It always worked like a charm. But this time I stood up, walked to him, and took his distinctly jointed hand. His fingers moved slightly, as if he had a premonition. I held the pink bombshell and, without hesitation, firmly slipped it onto the base of his ring finger. A cool metallic touch. That massive, dazzling pink heart now adorned his slender finger with an incredibly dominant and ostentatious presence. It emitted an undeniable, dreamy yet flamboyant charm. Ethan looked down at his hand, his expression utterly bewildered, as if the visual shock had completely rendered him speechless. I lifted my face, looking at his resigned yet helpless expression, my smile as bright as the sunshine outside the window. I spoke, every word clear. "Wear it. So later, if I accidentally bump my head again and forget things." I pointed to the blinding pink diamond on his hand. "Seeing this, I'll immediately remember." I paused deliberately, leaned closer to him, my eyes filled with cunning amusement. "Oh, there's a quirky guy with unique taste who must be my very own husband, no doubt about it. Ethan. He looked down at the massive, startlingly pink heart on his finger, then looked up at my toothy smile. Finally, that hint of helplessness and resignation gradually faded, transforming into a warm, indulgent affection that quietly crept into his eyes. Ethan raised the hand adorned with the quirky ring, bent a finger, and lightly flicked my forehead. All right. His voice was low, laced with laughter and a settled solemnity. Your husband will always wear it. From now on. I'll never take it off again. Sunlight streamed through the French windows, falling on the pink heart-shaped ring, reflecting countless tiny, dazzling sparkles. Thanks for watching today's story. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.